I'm sorry, it's just, you have to understand. I never meant for this to happen, I stammered, my voice shaking. Is this true? I asked, turning to my sister, my gaze burning with disbelief and anger. This isn't the right time for that, she replied hastily. Lily should have been your priority, I shot back, my voice rising. In that moment, I realized my hand was trembling, raised as if to lash out at both of them. I froze. I had never felt so cold, so devoid of compassion. This was a side of me I never wanted to see, an experience I hoped never to relive. But because of my careless husband and selfish sister, I now carried a memory I could never erase, a memory that would haunt me forever. It all started with a simple promise. My sister had asked me, no, she had forced me, to pick up my niece, Lily, from preschool that day. Please, just do it this once, she had pleaded, and tomorrow too. Why is it always so urgent with you? I had snapped. You're a stay-at-home mom, you have time. That's not the point, she retorted. As she spoke, I could hear Lily coughing faintly in the background. Is Lily sick? I asked, my concern deepening. No, she's fine, my sister replied dismissively. She just coughed a little. Anyway, can you keep her for a while? Like, a week? A week? Are you serious? I can't. Well, if you won't, I'm leaving her at the preschool. If no one picks her up, she can just stay there, she interrupted coldly. I gritted my teeth. You're unbelievable, I muttered, finally agreeing for Lily's sake, though resentment boiled within me. The next morning, I got a call from Lily's preschool, much earlier than I had expected. The voice on the other end was frantic. We've been trying to reach your sister, but she isn't answering. Lily has a fever, and she lost consciousness. She's being rushed to the hospital by ambulance. Panic shot through me as I ended the call and sped to the hospital, but it was too late. The weight of that day crushed me. I had been married for 6 years, yet I had no children of my own. My husband and I had started family planning as soon as we got married, but we hadn't been successful. Meanwhile, my sister had a baby 2 years ago. After her divorce, she began dumping her responsibilities on me whenever she could. It's good practice for when you have a child of your own, she would say casually, as if Lily were a doll I could borrow and return. I didn't like her attitude, but I adored my niece. She was bright and sweet, and I had always wanted to be there for her. That day, however, everything changed. My heart broke in a way I never thought possible, and I vowed that I would never let my sister's selfishness or my husband's indifference pull me into such a situation again. I'm going to take care of my niece again tomorrow, I told my husband. Can I ask for your help? He hesitated. Actually, I have an urgent problem at work. I need to fly out early tomorrow morning for a business trip. Really? I tried not to sound disappointed. Yeah, he said, his tone apologetic. It's a client I've known for a long time, and while it won't affect the contract, I'm in charge of sales. I need to handle this personally. I nodded, masking my frustration. Okay, well, be careful. Are you sure I'll be okay on my own? If it's too much, I can go to my parents' place. I'm sure you'll manage, he said, trying to reassure me. Thanks for understanding. Have a safe day with Lily. Thanks, I replied, forcing a smile. Have a safe trip. At the time, I thought it was just bad luck. My niece, Lily, was deeply attached to my husband. The last time I cared for her, she cried all night until my husband held her and calmed her down. I'd believed that if anything happened, he'd be there for her again. But, of course, work comes first. I told myself I was prepared to handle whatever came, even if it left me utterly exhausted. The next day, everything spiraled out of control. I received a call from Lily's preschool. Panic surged through me as I rushed to the hospital, where I found her small body connected to tubes, lying unconscious. The preschool teachers were visibly shaken. The director approached me, her face etched with worry and anger. You're Lily's aunt, right? Her mother's sister? Yes, that's correct, I answered. We've been trying to contact your sister, but we haven't been able to reach her. We even called her workplace, but they told us she's on vacation. Do you know where she is? She's overseas, I said, my voice heavy. The director's eyes widened in shock. I see, she said after a moment, her voice tight with frustration. Let me explain what happened today. She recounted the morning's events. Lily had arrived at preschool looking flushed. During the routine temperature check, they found her daily temperature log was blank, something that was supposed to be filled out at home. The preschool refused to admit her without this completed, but when they took her temperature, it read 37.8 degrees Celsius, above the school's threshold of 37.5 degrees Celsius. The director had instructed my sister to take Lily home. However, my sister dismissed their concerns. Her temperature is always high, she had insisted. She's fine. Ignoring the teacher's protests, she left Lily at the preschool and walked away. When Lily's condition worsened, the school attempted to contact my sister repeatedly. When they couldn't reach her, they called my parents, but my parents were at work, unavailable during the day. Desperate, they dug up an old emergency contact form from a year ago, which had my number listed. That's when they called me. The director's voice trembled as she concluded, her face pale with distress. This should never have happened. Lily's in the hospital now. Her eyes glistened with tears, reflecting the weight of the situation. I stood there, staring at my niece, her small form fragile and pale against the hospital bed. My heart felt like it was shattering into a million pieces. I'm so sorry, I'll contact my sister immediately, I said, bowing my head in apology to the director and the chaperone. After thanking them for their efforts, I sent them back to the school. I tried calling my sister right away, but the line was disconnected. I called again, and again, dozens of times, hundreds, but she never picked up. Meanwhile, my parents rushed to the hospital after I informed them of Lily's condition. It's going to be okay, Lily's going to be okay, my mother kept saying, almost like a mantra, as though saying it enough times might make it true. Don't worry, she added, her voice trembling, we're in a hospital, they'll take care of her. But the treatment didn't help, her symptoms worsened with every passing moment, and still, I kept dialing my sister's number, desperate for her to answer. 2 days later, Lily's small, fragile life slipped away. A 2-year-old child, gone, alone, without the warmth of her mother's embrace. How could something so heartless, so cruel, happen? Tears streamed down my face as I held her tiny, cold body in my arms. Why? I whispered hoarsely to no one in particular. Why didn't I ask where my sister was traveling? Why didn't I stop her from leaving? Guilt consumed me. I couldn't help but blame myself. It's not your fault, my mother said softly, placing a hand on my shoulder, but even as she spoke, her tears fell freely. I tried again and again to contact my husband, desperate to tell him what had happened, but I couldn't reach him either. Time, indifferent to our grief, marched on. In the end, I had to arrange and hold a funeral for Lily without any word from my sister. The day of the funeral coincided with her return from her trip. I clung to my phone, ready to answer the moment she called. During the funeral, as the monks chanted their solemn sutras, my phone vibrated in my hand. I picked it up without hesitation. Oh, hello, came her chipper voice. Thanks for taking care of Lily. I just arrived at the airport and am on my way home. Oh, by the way, what kind of souvenir would you like? I froze, my grip on the phone tightened. You, I hissed through clenched teeth. What? I can't hear you, she replied. You, my voice broke, trembling with rage and grief. What are you doing? Lily, she's gone, she died. The chanting stopped as my voice echoed through the room. What? She said, her tone bewildered. What are you mad about? Mad? I repeated, my voice rising. You took a child's life. Do you even know how lonely she was? How scared? Oh no, no, her voice faltered. Right, I said bitterly, it's not funny, none of us are laughing. I struggled to control my emotions, exhaling deeply several times to calm myself. I'm in the middle of Lily's funeral, I said coldly, get back here, now. Without waiting for her response, I hung up the phone. I'm sorry, I whispered, breaking the silence and apologizing for interrupting the chanting. The monk, his expression calm and understanding, gently placed his hand on my head in a gesture of comfort. After the funeral, as I prepared to leave for the crematorium, my sister arrived, out of breath. To my shock, my husband was with her, standing just a step behind. It couldn't be, no. My sister collapsed in tears by Lily's small body. Why? She wailed, her sobs echoing in the solemn space. Behind her, my husband stood frozen, his face a mask of guilt and disbelief. The other relatives looked at her with quiet disdain, but no one voiced their anger, out of respect for Lily, I assumed. I couldn't bring myself to speak to either of them, not yet. After the cremation, we returned to my parents' house. There, my sister faced the brunt of my parents' fury. They scolded her relentlessly while I sat in silence, my gaze drifting to their luggage. Something about it felt off. My eyes focused on the airline sticker attached to the handle of her carry-on. Both bags bore identical labels from the same destination. I froze. Why were you both at the same airport? I asked, my voice trembling. My sister's mouth opened, but no words came out. She looked cornered. Finally, my husband spoke. I'm sorry, it's just, as you see. I didn't mean for this to happen. Is this true? I asked my sister, my voice icy. This isn't the right time for that, she muttered. No, I said, my voice rising. This isn't about you. Lily should have come first, always. I hadn't even realized my hand had risen toward them both in anger, but I stopped myself. It wasn't their infidelity that filled me with rage, it was the way they had disregarded my niece, their selfishness that led to her death. You don't get to cry, I spat at my sister. You don't have the right. Do you know how many times I called you? Hundreds of times. How hard is it to imagine that something could happen to your child? I turned to my husband. And you knew she was sick. While you two indulged in your disgusting affair, Lily was suffering. She died, alone and scared. My voice broke. You'll never be forgiven. Never. Both of you deserve to rot in hell for what you've done. Neither my parents nor the relatives stopped me. My mother's voice, cold as steel, cut through the room. You are not my daughter anymore. Don't you dare show your face here again. My sister's tear-streaked face crumbled. Why? Why am I the only one being blamed? You're not family to me, I said flatly. She left the house, her head bowed, without even taking Lily's ashes. Later, my husband and I finalized our divorce. He agreed to give me everything, shared assets, alimony, all of it, silent and guilt-ridden. He didn't contest a thing. It didn't matter. No amount of money or remorse could undo the past. Both my sister and my husband faced criminal charges after the preschool director reported them for child neglect and abuse. My sister fought her case with a court-appointed attorney, but no one stood by her side, not even our parents. She received a 5-year prison sentence. My husband, who knew about Lily's fever and abandonment, was sentenced to 2 years. 7 years combined for a lost life. How is that justice? It will never be enough. 6 years have passed since then. I've remarried and have a child of my own now, a child who has helped heal the wounds left by those terrible days. I will never forget my niece, Lily. Her memory will always stay with me. They say sins never go away, that they remain a burden one carries forever. My sister and my ex-husband deserve to carry theirs. But even so, it will never be enough. Human life is precious,